So, good evening, members. It's just gone 6. For the 2 members of the public, welcome to tonight's planning meeting. If at any point you would like a drink, there's a water machine out there and there are toilets. If the fire alarm does go, it is for real. Please don't use the lift. We'll all go down the stairs and perhaps assemble outside on the top car park. Other than that, we will then proceed now with the agenda for tonight's planning committee. First of all, are there any apologies for absence that need to be recorded, please?
Through you, Chair, we have received no apologies for absence for tonight's meeting.
Thank you. We move to number 2, approval of minutes of the previous meeting. Those minutes are found on pages 9 to 14. Are there any points that anyone would like to raise from the minutes first of all? If not, is someone prepared to move that they are a correct record? Thank you, Councillor Murphy, and it's seconded by Councillor Dobbs. All those in favour pertaining the minutes, please show, and that appears to be unanimous. Thank you. Are there any interests that any member wishes to declare at this point, please? If not, then we will move to applications. I'm not led to believe at this point there is any public participation apart from our speakers that are legitimately booked in when the applications surface that they're here for. So we'll turn then now to our first application for determination, found on pages 15 to 42. Now this pertains the last site visit we had yesterday, and before we go any further, I invite members, there are a number of reports, things in front of you that it's important that you perhaps take a few moments to just look at before we start to go into this application. So there's the addendum report pertaining drainage, demolition works, I do apologise. The one sheet is a late representation from John Taylor, 15 Lodge Farm, Chase. So again, if members would just take a few moments to take on board his comments, please. So we've no speakers or representations booked in for this particular application. Therefore, I'll invite now the case officer, Edwin Vorden, to outline the application to members, please.
Thank you, Chair. So, yeah, this is planning permission sought for 12 dwellings with the associated access, parking and landscaping at the former Highfield House nursing home just off Clifton Road. So it's about a 0.6 hectare parcel of land southwest of the centre of Ashbourne, accessed off Clifton Road. The former Highfield House nursing home has been vacant since about 2015, and it's now, from members will have seen on site, it's in a pretty derelict state. The site's located north of the existing Lodge Farm Chase cul-de-sac and estate, and the site's also just south of the Rose Garden development to the north. And then members also will have seen on site the land levels sort of drop down from Lodge Farm Chase. There's a drop down in land levels, and then it drops down again towards Rose Gardens as well. So we've got the site layout there. So the erection 12 dwellings in this location in Ashbourne obviously is acceptable in principle, given it's within one of our more sustainable settlements. Whilst the nursing home has previously been identified as a community use, this matter was dealt with on the last application. There's been marketing exercises undertaken that show that there was no interest to retain it, and obviously furthermore the site's in a severe case of dilapidation as well at the moment. So the proposed layout has effectively a winding cul-de-sac with a T-headed turning head at the end, terminating in plots 10 to 12. The proposed dwellings are about 2 to 2.5 stories in height and have sort of gable-ended, clay-tiled roofs. Some of the plots include open-sided carports, and the forms are generally kept simple with monopitch canopies over the entrances, proportioned facades, use of red brick and render in place as well. So I'll just take you through some of the house types. So that's plots 1, 2 and 3, so it's 2 beds and one bed. There's plots 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, and then plots 8 and 9, plots 11, 10 and 12. So those last three are the 5-bedroom dwellings, and then there's a mix of 3 beds as well between plots 4 and 9. So in terms of the character of it, it's pretty consistent with the nature and the form of development in the local area, so we consider it to be acceptable on design grounds. There's been a detailed viability appraisal that's been done for this application, and a similar one was dealt with on the previous application. Although, whilst last time we felt we didn't agree with the applicant's findings, on this occasion our independent viability consultants found that the scheme is indeed unviable, the site's unviable, meaning that affordable housing can't reasonably be secured for this site, because it would effectively make the scheme even more unviable. Notwithstanding, we have secured in the recommendation there's development contributions towards open space, particularly play space and allotments. In terms of covering neighbour amenity, there were some concerns raised, particularly in regards to plots 1 to 5 and their relationship with some of the dwellings on Lodge Farm Chase, and plot 6 as well. But in terms of assessing the application, the separation distances are considered to be acceptable in the range of 19-20 metres, and separated by an access road for the most part as well, and also with the orientations of the dwellings relative to those on Lodge Farm Chase as well. So whilst there have been some concerns there, we don't see there's any reason to refuse it on amenity grounds. And I should note as well, the late representation covers matters of structural concern, which isn't particularly a planning matter. Obviously, if the scheme relies on developing on someone else's land, they have to seek the relevant consent to do that through, effectively, is a matter of a civil matter, and it's a legal issue that doesn't need to be dealt with under the consideration of the planning application. In terms of highway matters, the scheme utilises the existing access and provides upgrades to it. It will deliver a 5 metre wide access with a 2 metre wide footway on the left hand side as it runs up, and also a 1 metre wide footway for the most part on the right hand side adjacent to plots 6 to 9. It will also, because of the gradient, of particularly at the point of the site entrance, there's going to be an upgraded surface, a skid-resistant surface, with a salt bin as well, just to help it be safe in inclement weather effectively. And overall, the Highway Authority are satisfied that the scheme doesn't present any unacceptable impacts on highway safety and doesn't result in any severe impact on the local road network, subject to all the relevant conditions they've requested. The existing building has been surveyed for bats, and it's been confirmed that there is a presence of bats there. Both Natural England and Derbyshire Wildlife Trust have advised that a licence will need to be secured, and we're reasonably confident through applying the 3 tests that a licence would be granted for this following the survey results that we've had. Biodiversity, that's going to be secured by purchasing credits off-site. Members on site may have seen that the site's quite heavily vegetated, so I think it would have been difficult for them to demonstrate an on-site delivery, particularly given most of the proposal will consist of private gardens. The site does include a range of protected trees. That was something the tree officer did over the course of the application, as they applied a tree preservation order over a series of ash and beech trees. Whilst generally the tree officer was happy with the proposals, there were some particular ash trees that he didn't agree with the level of severity of ash dieback that the developer's tree officer has reported. So the condition you'll see in the recommendation seeks to retain 2 of the ash trees, and then they'll have to seek a TPO consent to do any works to them. But we're satisfied that development could proceed without having to fell those trees. So I think that covers all the main material considerations. When weighing it all up, it's considered the proposed development is acceptable, subject to the conditions in the report, and particularly when factoring in the tilted balance and opportunity to redevelop a brownfield site in a sustainable location. Thank you.
So thank you, Edward, as case officer, for outlining that to members. Just before we proceed, welcome to Councillor Butcher. You're a newly appointed member of the Planning Committee, so we look forward to working with you. So I turn now to questions, and I always say, please will members be mindful not to be making long statements, but to stick to questions. We can have more of what you want to say in the actual debates. So first of all, I bring in Councillor Peter Dobbs.
Thank you, Chair. Edward, in an application of this size, would we expect a response from the LLFA? I note that there doesn't appear to be one.
Through you, Chair. I would say we would typically expect a response from the local flood authority. They were chased to provide a response, but it's not been forthcoming. I mean, it's well known that the LFA have had workload pressures effectively over this period, and they won't respond to minor applications. Albeit this is a major application, but effectively only adjusted given the thresholds, 10 houses. But like I say, yeah, we haven't received anything specific from them.
A supplementary question, Peter?
Not at this stage, thank you.
Councillor Stewart-Lees.
Thank you, Chair. Edward, you refer to the bat survey. I mean, was this report done before the roof was burnt off, or even though the roof's gone and it's virtually off demolished, does it still need a bat report? That's one question.
Through you, Chair. So it was actually there was a relatively lengthy bit of correspondence through the application. So the bat surveys were done some time ago, but in conversations with Natural England and Derbyshire Wildlife Trust, we're satisfied that for the purposes of the planning application, we don't need them to do any further surveys at this time, because they'll still effectively, just due to costs and unlikely to get a materially different result, they'll still need, there's a condition recommended there for them to secure a licence. Obviously, if it turns out in retrospect that that's not required, then they can deal with that and submit for that condition to be removed effectively. But previously there were confirmed roofs on the site, so they would have to effectively survey it again. But that's based on the information we have available, and they haven't provided anything up to date to show that there's no longer any roofs there.
Thank you. My second question is the plot plot 10, where the green line is, so the boundary extends into like one of the gardens of Lodge Farm Chase, basically. Is that correct? Where the green line is on plot 10? There's like a garden shed on the thing, and then.
Are you referring to the section adjacent to there's a garage building, or effectively an outbuilding rather, in?
Yeah, then it steps out on the plan, and then.
I believe
is the green line the boundary, basically?
Yes, I believe it is. It's all within their legal ownership. At least that's the basis on which the application was submitted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Councillor Peter Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Edward, the properties with 5 bedrooms, properties, they will at least have 2 cars apiece, won't they, really? Probably more in some cases. We're going to find, like we assessed yesterday when we visited the site, that there's going to be a lot of parking up there, and it's not going to accommodate it all. I've been through these documents, and even now I'm not convinced that we can cope with all that traffic up there.
Through you, Chair. So, in terms of the parking table that's set out, I suppose it's also, I don't think the plans necessarily assist very well with illustrating the parking provision on site, I must say. Partly because a lot of the dwellings also come with garages as well. Now, there is some debate as to whether garages should count towards the car parking figures. The higher authority take the view at the moment that garages can't count because they can be easily converted. But as it stands, the 5-bedroom plots will all have three car parking spaces. Those, to be fair, as annotated, those are on plot. I mean, plot 10 has 2 that are located sort of within the turning head, but albeit the rest of them, whilst it doesn't quite look like it on the plans, they do all have 3 car parking spaces for the 5 bedrooms, and then the 3 bedrooms have 2 car parking spaces, and the rest have either 2 or 1 as well. And then there's also the visitor spaces as well. So that's the overall provision, and particularly given that it's within Ashbourne as well, we'd consider that to be acceptable.
Can I have a second question? Second question is affordable housing. You maintain that it's not possible to have affordable housing yet. The quite expensive houses, what they 5-bedroom ones.
Through Chair, so the viability appraisal and indeed the independent consultant that we had look at it, they review the proposed house prices very carefully and check that they are in keeping with what we would expect them to be relative to the tenure effectively as well. So I believe, broadly speaking, that our viability consultant was happy that the figures that they were using to present their case that the scheme was unviable were accurate and reflective of the local area in terms of the level of house, the house prices. So yeah, effectively that's the assessment they've carried out, is that after, even without considering affordable housing, the scheme would not return a profit that you would effectively expect for this type of development, and that's also factoring in sensitivity testing if the construction costs or house prices were to change in the next few years.
Thank you, Peter. Councillor David Hughes, then Councillor Boynton, and then Councillor Burfoot. David.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I've got 3 questions. One of them is a supplementary to Peter's, actually, perhaps a clarification. I read this afternoon that instead of having garages, they were having carports, because they said garages wouldn't count and carports would. And indeed, if you've got a carport, you can actually open the car doors when the car is parked in the carport, so I can understand that. So really, is that correct, that they're going to have carports?
Through Chair, yes, yeah. So they're shown on the plot plans, because this was a point that came up during the assessment of the application. Is that it was flagged that the Higher Authority didn't count garages as being appropriate. So yes, the plots were revised to have open-sided carports, but they for the most part they're still sort of brick structures and things like that. So they'll still take the form of garage structures, but yeah, that I believe that is to give the highway authority some confidence that they're not going to be immediately converted into something else later on.
Thank you.
David?
Okay, the second question is about the addendum, the drainage condition. Is that a drainage condition that you would expect the LLFA to have provided if they had looked at these plans?
Through you, Chair. So, yeah, effectively, yeah. So it depends also on what the applicant submits at this stage. The reason I added that condition on is because there's not a drainage plan specifically. They have stated their intentions after applying the infiltration testing and the studies they undertook, but there wasn't a plan to that effect that demonstrated what the solution would look like. So in this case, it would be an attenuated flow into the sewer effectively. So that was a reason for that condition. The drainage hierarchy condition that was already on the recommendation, that is the exact wording that the LFA have previously used as well. So they will normally have at least one condition to the effect of provide a detailed drainage scheme and management plan based on the tests and information you've given us, effectively.
And your third question, David?
Okay, thank you for that. The third question is about condition number 20, I think it is, which is about, is it 20 or 21 now? 21. No dwelling within the development shall be occupied until provision has been made for electric vehicle charging facilities. And they need to provide details of those. Are you expecting them to provide one charging point per household, per dwelling, or are you thinking of community? Are they thinking about having community charging points?
Through you, Chair, my understanding would be that it would effectively all be on plot. Mind you, this is a condition that was recommended by the Highway Authority, so it would also be them that reviews it to make sure that they're satisfied with the details.
Because,
effectively.
okay, in that case, may we discuss that condition in debate, because there is an issue about the off-site car parking spaces for the smaller properties, but we can discuss that later, perhaps. The second bit on that is about shall be maintained for the life of the development. I'm always worried by these long-term conditions, which gives the Gavin Treens of this world more than enough work to be done over the next 150 years or thereabouts. Do we actually can we dispense with that, because it just seems to be impossible to enforce?
Through you, Chair, I mean, it's arguably a matter of semantics in terms of the wording that's used to secure that after we approve of those details, you actually build them and then keep them, because it is essentially the same as the approved plans condition in a way. The purpose of these conditions is to effectively add plans to the list of plans that make the development as a whole, and indeed that approved plan condition just says you shall build the development in line with what you've set out effectively. So the nature of the wording of that portion of the wording doesn't hugely affect what we would expect in practice, because obviously if they turned around and ripped up all the electric vehicle charging points later on, it wouldn't hugely matter when that was in the process. We would still find that to be a breach of the condition.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Chris, did you wish to comment?
Just to add, it's fairly standard wording which is used widely in authorities, and it's for the reasons that Ed has described. The risk otherwise is that, I mean, it's unlikely, but somebody might comply with the condition. They might provide for argument's sake, the electric charging points, and then they might fall into disuse. They might be ripped out 3 years later, for example. And it's to avoid that scenario happening. But I fully appreciate the point you're making, that are they going to be there in 150 years' time? Possibly not. But it's difficult to phrase a condition in such a way that otherwise takes out that risk that somebody just stops complying after 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
So it's Councillor Boynton and then Councillor Burfoot. John.
Thank you. Excuse me. I just want to clarify about plot 10 in relation to the closeness of it and the concerns of collapse with the steepness of the place it's been built. Is that a construction concern or a planning concern, or both, perhaps?
Through you, Chair, based on the nature of the concerns that have been put to me, I would say they're more construction-related concerns. The land levels, as you've seen from site, they effectively drop down quite a bit relative to large farm chase. So because of that, your traditional amenity concerns of daylight, privacy, outlook, things like that aren't particularly of concern here, particularly, and also because of where plot 10 sits relative to the main areas of the neighbouring property from which you'd normally enjoy, like the rear garden area, things like that. So matters of it affecting, or the notion that it would require underpinning the other property, even if that's true, the planning permission wouldn't suddenly give consent to do those works on someone else's land. That would be for the developer to address with that particular party. So in that sense, I would say it's a construction issue.
Thank you. Just another quick question in relation to the parking. I think yesterday we considered the parking at the turning area. And notoriously, these people park in them, even though they are purely for turning. Is there some way we can condition some signage, perhaps, or road markings so I appreciate it's a private road, but for the developer to put something down to discourage people from parking there. It causes a lot of problems on places such as this, and I don't know if we're able to do that as a condition.
Edward?
Through you, Chair. So effectively, yes. So we can what members may recall from site is that because of these questions, I did put it to the developer to ask the question, well, what measures are there going to be to deal with effectively parking in unallocated areas, given that it's a private street. Because they're highway consultants on leave, effectively, they didn't provide a substantive response, but they did say they'd be willing to accept a condition securing a parking management strategy that deals with what the management company, whoever they may be, will do to manage that situation going forward, and we could secure compliance with that strategy, for example. So that's one way we could deal with it. There is already a condition securing signage just to represent that it is a private street. That's mostly out of the higher authority's interest, just to bring awareness both to people potentially buying the properties and also to any visitors as well, just the nature of the road and how it sits relative to our wider network.
Thank you, John. Sue?
Thank you, Chair. Just following on from Councillor Boynton's question, that's kind of my question really, because looking at the plans, we would appear on first sight to have two turning areas, wouldn't we? I can't see the number of the houses, but they're the 5-bedroom houses. So am I right that the one to the south includes a parking space, because there's a little car there, so that then sort of halves the turning area. The one to the north has not got any little cars there, so you would assume that they were turning areas, but there's people that are almost bound to park there. And am I correct that because it's not going to be an adopted road, there's, apart from signage, there's nothing we can do? Because the obvious answer, if it was highway land, would be to put some double yellow lines, wouldn't it? But I'm correct, am I, that that's not possible? I'm just wondering, how are we going to stop people parking at those turning areas, which are not going to be turning areas, unless, I mean, if we put signage up, or we insist that we're conditioned to put signage up, that won't be enforceable, will it?
Edward,
So through you, Chair. So in terms of what the plan's annotated with, so on the south side, the two parking bays there are both allocated for plot 10. That's to make up their 3 spaces. They've got 1 space on the driveway, and the other 2 inside the turning area effectively are 2. Well, also, so some of the parking plots aren't annotated with cars, just to keep you on your toes. So there's 3 Yeah, so there's 3 spaces allocated for plot 10. 1 is on the driveway, 2 are off it. And then the 2 spaces that are on the northern edge of the turning head, those are marked with little V's, denoting that they're visitor parking bays, effectively. All of the manoeuvring operations, the swept path analysis as they're called, they've all been done assuming that that you can't use those specific bays to do your turning operation. So they've tested that on refuse vehicles, for example, and obviously on cars as well, just to demonstrate that you can still safely turn around using this turning head, even when all the car parking spaces are occupied.
Now that appears to be all the questions. Councillor Slack.
Just forgot one question.
Yeah.
Demolition of the building. Will all the materials be kept on site and crushed for use again?
Through you, Chair. That's not something I'm aware. There's no condition that secures that specifically. I'm not aware of them necessarily reusing the materials. Of course, generally speaking, we advocate for recycling materials where possible. But yeah, as I say, there's not a condition on the recommendation to secure that specifically, and I don't know if it's relevant or feasible for this particular scheme. But that's something for the developer would have to answer. I'm sure there's scope. There'd be scope for there'll be plenty of land levelling exercises, for example, that need to be done, and I'm sure that the developer, particularly given that it's that the viability of the site has been called into question, I'm sure they'll want to save as much as they can and make use of what they've got on the site to help deliver it efficiently. So I think that'll be left with them to ensure that they do that. I think it'll be in their interest.
So as we enter now into debate, just to help focus for the benefit of the committee, does anyone have a motion at this point they would wish to raise? Councillor Dobbs?
Actually, Chair, I was going to use our newfound freedom that we don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
And just to talk to the suggestion, the officer's suggestion. So shall I keep going? Because although I'm minded that deferral might be a way forward on this, because there is so much that we don't know about this that we could actually usefully know. And if I return to my point about the lack of an LLFA report, this it's extraordinary. In 242 pages which are offered by BASE on drainage, there's very, very little that is actually relevant. There's a lot of CCTV footage concerning sewers, which presumably won't be used, and obviously the usual figures about greenfield equivalents. But we don't know where the water's going to go. And if I can state very quickly, as a sort of plea from Severn Trent Water, who also don't seem to have responded, although of course they don't have to, they would very much like the surface water not to go into the foul sewer or the combined sewer. They'd like it to go into what is actually in the road not very far away, a stormwater sewer. And if we could actually have the applicant put forward a plan in which that is present and we keep the foul and the surface separate, that would be good. I'd also really like to know where the suds storage of 100 cubic metres, I think it is, approximately, is going to go, because clearly there will be a need for the residents' committee to look after that for the foreseeable future, because that's the way it goes these days, and that's missing. I'd also like to have seen in a development which is, you could argue, a bit stingy on parking, and maybe encouraging residents not to have too many cars and walk, because arguably this is an almost ideal place in Ashbourne to walk. You couldn't be better placed for GP, hospital, supermarket. The trouble is there's a very busy road between you and all of that, school. And I would like to put a plea in for there to be a central refuge to enable the crossing of Clifton Road. It's long overdue. The Rose Gardens development desperately needed one, but somehow that didn't get through in the outline application. And I would have liked to have seen some comment to that effect. And I would like to think that the applicant would be willing to contribute to that, assuming that Highways can go along with that and find a suitable spot. So I'm minded that deferral to have some of these extra bits of information supplied would be very useful. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Does that find a second? Councillor Lees.
Yeah, totally agree with Councillor Dobbs there, Chair. Also, I'd like to see, if we could, if possible, that plots 10, 11 and 12 could be readdressed on the parking, because I can see they are the three big plots which are going to have possibly more cars than the smaller plots. We're talking of 5-bedroomed houses, so we could be looking possibly, in an ideal world, like Councillor Dobbs said, we'd like to encourage people to walk, but kids I know don't want to walk. They want to go in the car and park the car, and I can see this turning head being full of cars, particularly in the evening, and I think something better could be done with the parking than what we've got on the plans at the moment. So I'd call for the developer to have a look to see whether this parking can be sorted out or a bit betterly sited, even if it meant, if possible, I don't know if the plots could be moved back a little bit further, which would probably solve a little bit of problem with the number 15, I think it is, Lodge Farm Chase, if the plot were moved back, the building was moved back further, but then I suppose you've got the rights of light then coming across, but I don't know what the officers think of that one, but I do think there's scope for quite a lot of improvement on this application that we've got, and I think it needs looking at a bit more seriously on the issues that we've raised. So I'm happy to second the deferral, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes, do you wish to still speak, or?
No, I will, in that case, I won't speak, because just see how the vote goes, and then if the vote goes against, then I might speak. But
yeah. Councillor G.
Yeah, I'm flabbergasted with this, to be honest, because I think Edward's presented an exceptional case. I think, we're trying to encourage developers to actually develop houses for people to buy, and putting all these onerous conditions on them, that raises the price of the houses. People have got to pay for them. And now, you conflagrate in this situation. This is 12 houses in Ashbourne. Our officers that would pay good money, and they're exceptionally professional, have recommended permission be granted. Why don't we just get on with it and let the developer build these houses and really move forward? Because, I just think he's done a perfect job, and that's what we pay him for. Thank you.
Well, I hear your view, but we took seriously the site visit, Councillor G, yesterday, and it's out of what we saw that there are reasoned views now being expressed. So can I bring in Councillor Stuart Lees, please?
Yeah, exactly, Chair. I was going to say exactly what you've just said. For Councillor G's, the site visit was very important yesterday, and at the end of the day, Edward has only commented. Edward hasn't drawn the plans, so I stick by what we are saying, suggesting this is people's safety. In years to come, we're going to have the problem in years when people's cars are sliding down that road, or people can't get up that cul-de-sac. That's going to be back on our heads then. So I'll stand by what we've said.
If there are no further comments, can we just test the motion, please? That we, you have right of reply, sorry.
Just to sum up, yes, I mean, Councillor G, we're just deferring. We're just deferring for more information. There's a lot that is good here, but there's a lot that's missing, and we think it could be better. And we're just saying to the developer, could we have some of these extra bits of information? The missing bit on drainage is very considerable. This is exactly what we criticised in the past, not being there. And if we just let it go through, we'll judge the drainage. This is not something which we pride ourselves in being, front line in doing. And I think we're sticking our neck out if we let the applicant just sort of, do it after we've agreed. So there we go.
David, I can't bring you or Councillor Jim because Peter's wound up.
Chair, I'm not sure what I'm voting for.
Well, it's a deferral.
But I don't know what I'm deferring for.
Right, so can I ask Peter and Stuart to present to the committee some reasons?
not the reasons for. I just want to know what the deferral will result in, because is it going to? Are they being asked to provide a drainage strategy, a plan, where the SUDS is going to go? Councillor Lee's talked about changing the layout of the site. Are we being asked to agree to the change? Asking the developer to change the layout, in which case it's a different application. So I'm not sure what we're voting for.
Right, well, let's clarify then the reasons for deferral, please, and then members come to their own conclusion.
Apologies, Chair. Yes, I didn't make it clear at the beginning. So we're deferring on the following grounds. I would suggest that we would request from the applicant that a drainage plan is provided, and that drainage plan should contain features such as where the sewers are going to run, where they are going to connect, and the location of any SUDS facility. Presumably it's going to be underground, but we'd like to see where it is, because there will be a responsibility to maintain that. I would like to see the question of provision for pedestrians. There is a condition, I think it was it 14A, correct me if it's wrong, which I would like to have something developed along that. So perhaps if the applicant could suggest how they might enable pedestrians to safely access the town centre, and perhaps if we could have some detail, notwithstanding what Edward suggested about plot 10, if we could have some detail about exactly how the land would be, the stability of the existing properties in Lodge Farm Chase would be maintained, if that is relevant.
Storm drain.
Yeah, sorry, the connection to the sewers, that would include the surface water being dealt with, and the foul dealt with separately.
And Councillor G, anything to add? Sorry, Leah's, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I'd just like, if possible, a betterment for the parking on plots 10, 11 and 12, with them being the larger developer houses.
Yeah.
I'd like it, because it's going to be a private road. There's not necessarily going to be any street lighting or anything, so there's going to be cars parked on, I can see it now, cars parked on the side of top of that cul-de-sac in the dark, plus possibly on the side of the road going down as well, which to me is an hazard that we can hopefully help to avoid.
Yeah. I'm going to take the vote now, Councillor G, because we've had the debate. I'm sorry, we've had the debate. You're either for it or against it. Let's test it, and then we can, if it fails, we can have the discussion. Sorry?
I'd like to interject on some of the comments.
Can I ask you, is that permissible? No, it isn't. So I'd like us, please, on the basis of the discussions and the points that have been raised, to test the feeling of the meeting, because if you're not for it, well, then we can enter a more protracted debate along your lines, Councillor G. So we have a motion before us to defer this application for the outlined reasons. All those in favour, please clearly show. Against? One against, abstentions. Therefore that is carried. So that concludes that application. So we move now to our second application. If members turn to pages 69 to 90, please. Again, we visited this site yesterday at Cubley, cultural buildings and the erection of 9 dwellings, and I think on this one yes, although I don't, is Andrew Stock not present? Made no contact, so we can therefore move straight to the office report, please.
Chair, if I may, this is the application for Ashbourne Airfield, and we do have the agent registered to speak on that.
Sorry, I've got myself muddled up. Right, I do apologise. It's page 43. And I do apologise. So this was in fact our first site visit yesterday, so I'll invite Sarah Wills to address the committee, please.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, not to worry. It's the right-hand switch. And you've got 5 minutes as the agent. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Sarah Wills of 1947, and I'll be speaking today as the agent of the application on behalf of the applicant, David Wilson Homes, East Midlands. The site is allocated for strategic housing in the adopted local plan for a total of 367 dwellings. This application seeks reserved matters consent for 70 dwellings, following the hybrid permission granted in August 2020. This application forms Phase 1B of the allocation, with Phase 1A having previously been secured for a total of 297 dwellings in December 2024. The scheme delivers 90% market housing and 10% affordable housing, alongside significant financial contributions secured as part of the previous outline and Section 106 agreement. Phase 1A of the site was presented to a design review panel, where the design approach was commended by officers and members. Phase 1B has been prepared as an extension to Phase 1A, adopting the same design principles to ensure a cohesive continuation across the sites, as depicted in the supporting design compliance statement. The proposed design continues the high-quality gateway phase of the wider development and responds positively to the characteristics of the local area. The application continues the alignment of the tree-lined spine road through the centre of Phase 1A, which transects through the public open space corridor of the former runway and creates a terminating feature square at the entrance to Phase 1B. A clear hierarchy of streets has been created with the use of tree planting to distinguish between the Greenway and secondary streets. This approach again is reflective of Phase 1A. The applicant has worked closely with the Highways Authority to agree an acceptable internal street layout, including the relocation of the junction closer to the feature area and the introduction of additional footpath links. Footpaths now connect the development to perimeter routes linking to Phase 1A and include public seating, ensuring the development will be inviting and accessible to all. Key public open spaces, including the runway and the northern attenuation basin, have been considered carefully in terms of routes through Phase 1B to ensure they are accessible by future residents. The development sets a high standard of sustainability, as highlighted in the Energy Sustainability Report, which outlines the use of low and zero carbon technologies employed across the site, including measures such as solar panels and EV charging points to all plots. With regard to ecological enhancement, site biodiversity has been considered in line with Phase 1A, with particular focus on connected green infrastructure and the creation of suitable habitats for dinghy skippers and small heath butterflies. This includes incorporating areas of wildflower, grassland, the retention of the existing trees and hedgerows, and the creation of a butterfly bank to the north of the site. The drainage strategy for Phase 1A was designed to serve the entirety of Phase 1, including Phase 1B, and therefore the proposed development will not result in flooding on or off-site. Surface water from the proposed development will be drained by gravity sewers, and the balancing pond has been sized to attenuate flows from the new development. Runoff from the development will discharge into the existing ditch course to the north. As a result of our client's commitment to this site, members will note the application is presented to committee with no technical consultee objections and has been recommended for approval by the planning officer. This follows a comprehensive period of proactive engagement between our client and the local authority since its submission. The site is deliverable and will provide much needed high quality housing options that will significantly contribute to the Council's housing land supply. We'd like to thank the officers for their hard work over the last 10 months, and I would urge members to undertake their decision making with recognition to the assessment and positive recommendations set out in the officer report. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. I'll allow you to go back to your seat and bring in the case officer, please, Edward.
Thank you, Chair. So this application site consists of a roughly 3.2 hectare parcel of land within the wider former Ashbourne airfield site to the southeast of Ashbourne. You might just be able to see it here with the red line boundaries present there, and phase 1 as a whole, or phase 1A, is outlined in blue there as well. And then we've got the proposed layout there. So the scheme already has outline plan permission along with the rest of phase 1, and is part of the wider Ashbourne airfield allocation within the local plan. This is phase 1B, with phase 1A located to the southwest, and much of the layout of phase 1A is marked on that layout plan as well to the southwest. And this particular scheme will deliver 70 dwellings. So phase 1B is proposed to be effectively an extension of the design of phase 1A. As the agents commented upon, the phase 1A in particular underwent a design review panel process, and a lot of the previous concerns were dealt with there, and we resulted in a high quality design, and the developer sought to demonstrate that that same rationale and ethos has been carried over into this scheme as well. We did undertake a independent design review which did identify some areas for improvement, specifically relating to permeability, and that's resulted in an updated layout. It predominantly brought the primary or secondary street that runs through the development, it brought it closer towards what's titled as the feature area in as the entrance to the site. So it just it reduced the total length of that main street and made the site easier to get through, and also it secured better permeability on the greenway and provided more entrances and served more desire lines from that open space area to effectively all of the roads. The entrance phase 1B consists of that feature area and the greenway itself, which also includes a cycleway and pedestrian footway as well. The footway itself also leads around the perimeter of the site, adjacent to Lady Hole Lane. So that's roughly where where members undertook the site visit. So that footway will run around the perimeter, running up towards the attenuation area that was secured as part of phase 1A. The proposal presents a slightly lower density than phase 1A overall. It has a mix of 2 and 2.5 storey dwellings, and it's arranged in a manner to create essentially 4 main blocks with a sort of U-bend spinal road running through, and connected cul-de-sacs branching off that as we go. Much of the architectural detailing and the features reflect both the local character and also the design principles established in phase 1A as well. So that's the use of red brick with a range of different detailing and a good mix of different house types as well, to add a level of interest on the streets. Following the sort of design review process and the feedback that was received over the course of that, we're satisfied that the application represents a high quality design, and it demonstrates a coherent and successful extension of the phase 1A part of the development. In terms of matters such as housing mix, it provides a diverse range of tenures, albeit it's slightly on the larger side than what our local plan policy states. However, it has to be borne in mind that the local plan policy is quite dated at this point, so the particular needs of the area will likely are different to what was secured back in 2017 when the plan was adopted. And also it secures the affordable housing that's dealt with in the section 106 under the original application. So we're satisfied that it still provides a good mix of housing relative to the Ashbourne Airfield development as a whole. The higher authority and the lead local authority are satisfied with the scheme, subject to their own conditions. The higher authority was pivotal in assisting in securing amendments to the layout, just to make it more permeable, make it more accessible, and also to ensure that it was designed to encourage safe speeds and also to promote active travel as well. And speaking of that as well, the development obviously through its perimeter edge and also through the greenway, it provides a good amount of open space. And then in terms of more formal open space, such as play areas, those were secured as part of the delivery of Phase 1A, and it's considered that those occupying Phase 1B can reasonably access those as well, and within a reasonable distance via active travel to access those. So that covers pretty much all of the main considerations really, and overall the scheme is considered to be acceptable in terms of its reserve matters and providing a good extension to tie off Phase 1 as a whole of Ashbourne Airfield. So thank you.
Thank you, Edward. Two members have indicated that they wish to ask questions. The first was Councillor Peter Slack. The second is Councillor David Hughes. Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Some of what's never been met. Yes, very good that charging points are being put in. That's great. But some vital questions which have never been put to us. Heating. Are the gas going to be gas boilers, or I hope not? Or are they going to be solar panels and heat pumps?
Through you, Chair. So I believe, there'll be solar panels. I can't recall if there are heat pumps. I believe there are as well. The application was supported with a comprehensive energy statement. It covers all of the various different renewable energy sources that the scheme will deliver as well. The site will be facilitated with, well, at the very least with solar panels as well. Those are evident from the site plans too. So I think, the site delivers a good.
So there
good
is no
amount of
gas
renewable
central
energy.
heating at all?
Not to my knowledge. I can't recall that particular detail.
Part of the government strategy in future, isn't it, to use solar panels and heat source pumps. So we're getting there gradually. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes, then Councillor G. Councillor Hughes, Councillor Dobbs, then Councillor G.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned the footways and the cycleways. Do they go anywhere? I can see one that goes off-site, but do any others go to schools, near schools, or anything that would allow children to walk to school, or are they just walks around the perimeter of the site?
Through your Chair. So part of this is down to that they connect up to, so a portion of them connects up to what will be Phase 2, so it'll be incumbent on those that are delivering and planning Phase 2 to continue those paths on, and indeed some of the work has been done as part of the local authorities' SPD process as well to make sure that the appropriate active travel links are secured in that sense. The perimeter on the south corner of Phase 1B, I believe, continues an existing perimeter link that runs across, and also from the feature area itself, there'll be there's the cycleway that runs into Phase 1A as well, along with the sort of standard pedestrian provision. So it links into Phase 1A, and it will link into Phase 2 as well. As to what will be provided where in Phase 2, that's not confirmed at this stage, but they do connect to more than just the site itself.
But they don't connect to Ashbourne.
In terms of, I don't know the full extent of the pathways outside of the scope of this particular application, so that'll depend on what was secured at Phase 1A in terms of the routes of those paths, and again for where the routing will be for Phase 2 as well. So we'd have to refer back to the routes of those paths, particularly in Phase 1A, because that one has been secured already. So that should provide a good, still an active travel route through the whole development.
And will they provide access to a school so children can walk there by themselves, a primary school so children can walk by themselves, or will the children still have to be taken by their parents along roads?
Well, I believe eventually, effectively, in terms of those routes, I can't speak to the length of route required, but effectively, yes. Just in terms of in terms of the sort of permeability of the site as well. Like I say, much of that will depend on the routing of the paths that are secured at phase 1A as well, and phase 2.
Well, can they walk to school if the route? I mean, phase 1A is built.
Under construction, yes, yeah.
So there are footpaths designed for phase 1A. Do those go near the primary school, local primary school? Or?
That's not something I have an answer to, I would say at this stage.
Can I just request that in future, when we evaluate these schemes, we think about children and how they get to school, how they get to play areas and other things, because as far as I can see, the developers do not ever think about children at all, and it upsets me, because children deserve to live an independent life as much as they possibly can. And we know that it's bad for their mental health, and it's resulted in poor outcomes when they become adults. So can I ask that we rigorously assess footpaths and other and cycleways to enable children to be able to walk to the places that they will wish to go to?
Okay, Councillor Hughes. Edward, could you just respond?
Just to come back on that point, obviously, in terms of assessing the site itself, for the purposes of what we're here for tonight, obviously we're dealing with how it connects up to its immediate surroundings, effectively. So, what the design assessment did find is that the site is very permeable and does provide good quality cycleways and pedestrian routes. Again, that is admittedly within the site itself, but ultimately that's the scope of what we're dealing with at this stage. So we're satisfied that the site itself provides good infrastructure for encouraging people to do active travel. In terms of routings towards the school, ultimately how good those are beyond the confines of the site it ultimately depends on the rest of the development. Part of it's been secured already, part of it is to be secured, or depends on what the submission consists of for phase 2, really. So I can speak to the merits of the scheme as presented in terms of its permeability and credentials for providing that infrastructure, but I can't provide too much commentary on what's been secured outside of that and the routes leading specifically from this development to other sort of services and facilities. Partly also because those were dealt with to some extent part of the allocation of the site in general and its ability to locate to its relative location to those facilities, and also when the original outline application was submitted in terms of dealing with contributions and how well located it is to those services as well. So like I said, I think the design is acceptable in terms of its credentials for securing active travel, at least based on the local planning authority's assessment and also based on what the highway authority reviewed as well.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Councillor Hughes. I have a lot of sympathy and I think you're absolutely right. And in one sense, possibly, it's almost like a big cul-de-sac in terms of what you're legitimately trying to say, quite rightly, ought to be part of this logical plan. Can I bring in Councillor Peter Dobbs and then Councillor G?
Thank you, Chair. Before my two questions, I think it's two, just to clarify, the business about the locations of the schools relative to this development has been the elephant in the room ever since this site was put forward, because of course it was an airfield and didn't have any schools. So it's really down to where county education chooses to use the not insignificant amount of money that it's about to receive 25% of in the not too distant future, because clearly you would not recommend any child to cycle, leave alone on their own, to one of the near primary schools. You might suggest that they might walk, but it's a jolly long walk to the other possible primary school. So from my viewpoint, the sooner that the phase 2 primary to entry primary is actually turned from a vague thing in the future to a reality in bricks and mortar, as they say, the better. And that would certainly feed into what this site can provide. Obviously, you can't expect the site to provide more than being self-sufficient because you can't move the schools from where they are. But it does provide permeability, and you will be able to walk, probably a very nice walk, when the primary school is on site. But it isn't, we're not there at the moment, and that's beyond our remit. That's the remit of the county, and when they choose to put the primary school on phase 2 site. If I can come to my 2 questions, I'll do the one which is most relevant first. I noticed there's a travel plan. My question is, to what extent is our role to critique the travel plan, or is that entirely something that highways do and we just tick the box to say they've had a look at it, they say it's okay, and that's fine?
Through you, Chair. I mean, officially, it's going to be the local planning authority's role, but ultimately, the higher authority, for example, have effectively a dedicated team to review the travel plan, and we would take their advice on it, and given that they are the experts in that particular field, so we are very much informed by their commentary on it. And unless we had a material reason to disagree with their findings, we would be, go off their advice effectively.
Okay, thank you. If I can just comment on that briefly. I think a 10% reduction in single occupancy trips, which seems to be the main thrust of the travel plan, seems extremely modest, if I can put it that way. Not very ambitious at all. The other thing I'd like to comment on is we seem to disagree with what street trees are.
I'm sorry, it's not comments, it's questions.
Sorry. Yes. So are we aligned with highways on street trees, or are we allowing this particular developer to get away with this slight modification, so the trees are actually in gardens? Is that the position we're taking? So we are really aligned with highways and what we think street trees should be, or is our take on it slightly more flexible?
Through you, Chair. So I would suggest it's partly a mix of both, in that we had to acknowledge that the scheme effectively delivers the same level of provision in terms of street trees as phase 1A, and obviously phase 1A was approved and we were satisfied with it at the time as well. There is some level of guidance that's changed between the determination of that application and this application, and same with national policy as well. So in that respect, I mean, it is not as much as the higher authority would like and would request. However, it's not a matter which would reasonably result in a refusal, for one thing, and also it continues the same principles that we found to be acceptable under the previous phase as well. So it's that basis on which it's put forward predominantly.
Thank you. Councillor G, thank you for your patience and trying to be a fair chairman. I think you're entitled to ask now, if you would, 3 very long questions.
No, my questions are quite simple. It just relates to EV chargers and the houses. Are we actually insisting in the condition that all the houses have EV chargers?
If I may, Chair, I'm just going to refer to. So it's a commitment that the applicant has sought to as well. They have got a plan, which I have somewhere as well, which demonstrates effectively that they will all have on plot charging facilities. So that's, as I say, that's a commitment that they've provided for. Yes, I've got it here. So it has a mix of post-mounted and wall-mounted. The majority of them are wall-mounted, and that's effectively on all of the dwelling houses. And then there's a portion of them that are post-mounted as well. Those are mostly for the affordable housing section of the development. So that's something that the developers put forward, and we conditioned that they comply with it as it's what they've proposed.
Because my question is it necessary to, I wouldn't say make them do that or ask them to do that, because wouldn't it be better to allow the people who buy the houses to decide if they want an EV charger? Because, I mean, if you've got an electric car, that's good. but are we just destined these houses for people who want to have an electric car? Because what happens if somebody buys one who's got a petrol or diesel car and they don't want an electric car? Are we putting extra cost on those people?
Through Chair. I mean, also, a portion of this is a lot of the energy policy is slowly being moved over to building regulations as well. And I believe electric vehicle charging provision is also a part of that. So it is ultimately, it's a provision that enables all of the dwellings to be effectively future-proofed in that sense, and also present-proofed as well, insofar as the proportion of electric vehicles is going to keep increasing, and also still it's still a valued part of indeed the customer base in terms of buying these dwellings. So ultimately, it's something that the applicants proposed, and we'd support them in doing that because it's aligned with our climate change policies, and that's that effectively.
But could I just confirm that that policy would actually increase the price of the houses as opposed to keep the price of the houses down?
I mean, you could argue that in relation to almost any planning policy, I suppose. It's not really a material consideration as to what the price of the houses will be after the if planning permission is indeed granted tonight. What is a material planning consideration is whether a particular aspect can render a scheme unviable, but we're not in that territory, and these are things which the developer themselves has offered to do. And there is a legitimate, planning policy. We do have a local plan which encourages measures that enhance sustainability, and that is a legitimate area of planning policy. So it's not against, this proposal doesn't run against any planning policies in including these features. Far from it. It actually these are features which are in line with what our policy is encouraging, so there wouldn't be any planning reason to refuse it or to ask for these features to be removed. And the end cost to the end house price unit cost is not really a material planning consideration. It's not something we can take account of, I'm afraid.
Your final question, Councillor G? You're okay? Right. Councillor Stewart-Lees, please. Does anyone else wish to ask any questions? So this is the final question then, please, Councillor Lees.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just start off with a comment? We keep on about vehicle charges. It is, unless I will stand corrected, but on my last development that I did, it was a building regulation that you do have to put an EV charger on the property, as well as three-phase electricity now. So my biggest concern would be whether the grid's got enough power. That'd be my biggest concern. But it is a building regulation that they do adhere to, basically. So that's just one. But my question is, Councillor Dobbs sort of alluded to it. Will the school, the junior school, be built before this phase starts or not? Or is it part of it? Or is that the next phase?
Through you, Chair. So I believe that's the next phase. So this phase solely consists of residential development and would likely be it's likely to be delivered in order effectively. So phase 1A is currently under construction. That will likely be completed, likely beforehand phase 1B. But in any case, both of them are likely to be completed before phase 2 is underway.
Thank you. Stuart, any further questions?
Yeah, I'm just concerned that these houses with the children, they have nowhere to go to school because the nearest school, which is Osmaston, is fully subscribed now, I believe. So I don't know where they're going to go to school. Hilltop's the next nearest one, which is probably best part of 2 miles away from there. So I don't see how people are going. They can't walk to school, put it that way. There's no footpaths to Osmaston. Once you get onto the main road, you've got a very deadly road to cross to get to Osmaston if you're walking to school on your own. Likewise, it's the same thing. You've still got to cross that road somewhere if you're going to Hilltop. So I am concerned about the occupation of these before the school is built.
Right. we've got before us an officer recommendation to grant consent, so it's now open for debate and for you to decide whether you wish to support the officer recommendation or something. Councillor Dobbs and then Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. I'm perfectly happy to support officer recommendations. As has been said, this is just a continuation of Phase 1A, and I think the plans that have been forthcoming have actually been quite a revelation, and some imagination has been given to how to plan a large number of houses on a flat piece of brownfield land. So it was not the easiest site to develop, and I think some imagination and creativity has been spent. However, since I have the opportunity, I would just echo what Councillor Lees has said. I do wish that County Council would put in place some sort of timescale for this new school. It's inevitable there will be one. Please can we have one sooner? I notice on the phasing plan for the public open space on Phase 1A, there's some bits of public open space which are not due until, I think I haven't got my, well, I've got my glasses on, but I can't read very well. I think it's 2029, it's very small print. And so this is a long-term project. And if we're going to wait another 4 or 5 years before a school comes, and in the meantime have 200-300 houses built, that is not a very satisfactory situation. So I do put a plea in that actually we can accelerate the development of the new school in Phase 2. But otherwise, I'm happy to support officer recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Peter, are you seconding the vote? Thank you.
Can I just say
Yes.
that I totally agree with Peter on all the issues. Another issue I would like to put forward, that I should have done it previously. Obviously there'd be storage batteries to get all the electric from the solar panels stored, I should imagine, as part of development.
I believe that's included as part of delivering the solar panels. Yes.
Yeah. In regards to, I agree with him about schools. The only thing you can do is bus the children. They're temporary, isn't it? It's not satisfactory, but safer, isn't it? And trying to let them cycle or walk to school. So, it's only the other thing we can do, isn't it, in the meantime?
Councillor G.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I'm happy to support the recommendations, officers' recommendations. And I think the school is an issue, but don't forget, some of these smaller schools do need children. And all these parents are going to have electric cars, so they'll be able to drive them to the school. It won't cost them anything. It's almost free. And that's what will happen. So I would definitely support the officer's recommendations. Thank you.
Any further comments? If not, can we put this please to the vote? Peter, just wind up.
I think I've said all I need to say.
Enough, yeah.
Thank you.
So members, it's moved and seconded that we grant consent for this application. All those in favour, please clearly show. And that is unanimous. Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Yes, David.
Can we also write to the Education Authority and make the points made by Councillor Lees and Councillor Dobbs about the need for a school for this development to avoid the children having to go by car, with their parents taking them by car over 2 miles. I mean, it seems absolutely crazy that they should have to do that. And I think, given we're now suggesting possibly another 20 or 30 children will be going to primary school, there is a need.
Chris, these are very reasonable but very serious points, and I fully support what Councillor Hughes is saying. Who do we convey that to? It is county, obviously, isn't it? So, who?
I mean, it would need to be progressed with the county, so it's something we can pick up. We can certainly ask the questions and put the points that have been made tonight about how crucial it is that the new school comes forward as quickly as possible. So happy to communicate those points to the county.
Peter.
Sorry, Chair, if I can just add, any advantage that their travel plan might actually offer would be absolutely nothing compared to building the school on the adjacent site. It would completely alter the trips calculation for that site. And so, you know, why this isn't a priority, I don't know.
Thank you. So we'll turn then to the final application, which pertains the demolition of existing agricultural buildings and the erection of 9 dwellings. And we visited this site at Cubley yesterday. So again, Edward, if you... the applicant's agent has arrived. Good to see you. So you've got 5 minutes, Andrew, and I got it wrong. It's the left-hand switch, not the right. It's the left hand. And when you're ready, it's over to you.
Good evening, members. We've worked closely with the Planning Department through the pre-application advice service, and we've welcomed the constructive feedback provided by all interested parties throughout the assessment of this application. I'd personally like to thank the case officer in his efforts of getting this planning application to this month's planning committee. Full planning permission is sought for the complete redevelopment of Stoneleaf Farm, including the demolition of 6 redundant poultry sheds and the erection of 9 executive dwelling houses. The site benefits from 2 extant Class Q planning permissions, which allows for the change of use and conversion of 2 poultry buildings to 9 dwelling houses. The scheme has been prepared on this basis as a fallback position, with the number of units remaining exactly the same. However, the redevelopment represents a substantial reduction in the overall built development and form in terms of footprint and volume, which we consider to be a significant benefit to the overall area. The architect design-led scheme has been informed by an assessment of Cubley's settlement pattern and landscape setting. Dwellings would be 1.5 storey and 2.5 storey construction of traditional design and arranged in a scale to reflect the character of a traditional farmstead. The design concept aims to visually anchor the new development within a landscape setting as part of a new farmhouse at the front of Derby Road, and to the rear, 8 dwellings are located in a semi-linear arrangement around an ancillary courtyard formation. The buildings will be of red brick construction, featured with pitched roofs and clay plain tiles and simple architectural style openings. We firmly believe that development provides an opportunity for a more comprehensive and coherent development unhindered by the perimeters of Class Q, as the development will allow the use of much more modern building techniques, encouraging energy-efficient properties moving towards passive house standards. The development also looks to retain and incorporate all existing trees where appropriate. As discussed on site yesterday morning, the oak tree identified on the southern boundary will be retained and protected, as set out in detail within our supporting arboricultural impact assessment. Overall, it's considered that the development will respect the character, identity and context of Derbyshire Dales and would offer significant enhancements to this part of Cubley. Local residents have also welcomed the redevelopment of the site for residential use as part of, in place of the former poultry sheds for obvious reasons. We have worked closely with the local highway authority, the council's trees and landscape officer, the Environment Agency, Derbyshire Wildlife Trust have all raised no objection to this application, subject to standard conditions which we've agreed to. It's therefore respectfully requested that members follow the advice of the Planning Department and approve the application this evening. Thank you very much for listening, and I welcome any questions you might have.
Andrew, thank you very much for those comments. So I'll invite Edward again. This was a very useful site visit yesterday, so please outline the application.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an application for the demolition of the existing agricultural buildings and erection of 9 dwelling houses in their place. So this consists of 6 disused chicken sheds at Stoneleaf Farm, located west of Cubley, off Derby Lane. And that's the proposed layout there. So whilst the site is in the countryside, where policy would typically resist development of new dwelling houses, as the agents mentioned, the site can already be converted into 9 dwellings under permitted development rights, and that presents effectively a fallback position. But bear in mind that would involve converting the existing chicken sheds, whereas this involves the creation of new dwellings, which have a better quality design as well. So the layout consists of a sort of linear courtyard arrangement, providing the 8 sort of linearly designed dwellings, and then a sort of farmhouse-esque dwelling on the entranceway to the site as well. It uses the existing access, which will be improved in line with what the Hire Authority have requested. as members will have seen on site, the site's well contained with a mix of trees and hedgerows as well. So it's considered that a development of this size sits comfortably within that existing context, and indeed looks is visually better than what's existing on site. So if I go through, we've got some visuals as well there of the street scenes and also of a 3D visual of it as well. So as said, they consist of pitched roofs with a mix of red brick, clay tiles, and timber cladding in place as well. And ultimately, the scheme's not considered to give rise to any design or amenity issues, considering its location and the nature of the development as well. The Highway Authority are satisfied that it's not going to cause any safety issues and it's not going to cause any traffic issues that would warrant refusing the application. And it's requested some upgrades in terms of visibility and also securing good pedestrian access to the site as well. The tree officer did raise some concerns about a mature oak tree adjacent to plot 5, so that's that's the larger tree on the south end in the middle of the boundary there effectively. So we're satisfied that issue can be dealt with via condition in this instance, given that the existing site is covered by hard standing in any case. But obviously the development of the site will have to be carefully managed to make sure that that mature oak tree can be retained and have a good lifespan. And yeah, so overall, in terms of the whole situation, effectively, it's whilst it is a countryside development, there's a fallback position, and if this was refused on sustainability grounds, the applicant would be able to exercise delivering that solution instead, which we consider would not be as appropriate as delivering this, which provides a higher quality design and a good opportunity to redevelop the site in its context. So it's recommended for approval on that basis.
Thank you very much, Edward. Now already Councillor Burfoot and Councillor Slack have indicated they'd like to ask questions. Anyone else at this point? Thank you, Laura. So
thank you, Chair. I think members will probably realise what or anticipate what I'm going to ask a question about. I think Stuart's already got it on his mind. So it is this thing about red brick. Can I say first of all that I've got no problem at all with red brick in this area, none at all. But what I want to be sure about, given that this is a high quality development, I need to be reassured that we're not going to see what I call cheap red brick used. I want to be sure that we're going to have high quality red brick, and if that involves a discussion between the agent and the officer, I'm quite happy for them to come up with an arrangement. I'm just making the point, please no cheap red brick as we've seen in some parts of Matlock. Thank you.
Edward, how do you respond to that?
So through you, Chair. So, I mean, I would anticipate in terms of wanting to successfully market the site and deliver a good quality development that the developer would look to secure high quality materials, and indeed we would expect that of them as well. The site isn't in any protected areas that would normally spur a planning officer on to attach any conditions specific to materials, but if members are minded to, that can be arranged as well, just to secure specific samples. But yes, in any case, I think I would echo the point that we would expect for all developments that they use materials that are appropriate to the area, and also ones that result in the scheme having a high quality appearance. And I would anticipate the developer intends the same as well.
If I may come back, Chair, I'm more than happy for you to have discussions with the agent and the developer. I've made my point.
Thank you. Councillor Peter Slack, Councillor Lees, and then Councillor G.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two questions, Edward. But they're linked together, really. Were at the beginning, was it pre-planning advice? I assume there was, with discussions with the developer. That's my first question.
Yes, there was. Yes, there was pre-application
The
advice.
second question is, looking at the site, attending the site yesterday, it's a very large site. I was quite amazed that there's only 9 dwellings going on there, on this site. I would have expected more dwellings to go onto this site, to be perfectly honest. 9 dwellings is just under affordable housing, isn't it? It's a very, I don't like to say it, but I think it should have been, you know, it looks very suspicious, but so that's not a question. My question is, why wasn't there more recommendation for more houses on this site?
Through you, Chair. So I suppose that the starting point we have with sites like this is that because they're in the countryside and they are considered unsustainable locations, we don't encourage housing in those situations. So always the starting position you would have with a planning officer giving advice on a site in this location would be, you know, our policies don't permit you to build houses there. What's happened in this situation, and indeed is the case with a few particularly agricultural sites, is that through the government allows for permitted development rights to convert existing agricultural buildings into dwellings, and the amount they were able to secure in this case was 9 dwellings. So on that basis, effectively, that sets up what we refer to in the report as a fallback position, whereby we couldn't resist 9 dwellings on sustainability grounds because they can already build or provide 9 dwellings. So the reason, I guess, why we haven't sort of encouraged or sought more dwellings in this instance is because it's not normally a location where we would encourage more dwellings, and indeed also Cubley isn't exactly a very densely populated location as well. So dwellings of this size are fairly, you know, reasonably typical within the character of it. So we didn't have a specific reason to encourage further development beyond what the fallback position already granted.
Can I just come back with a question? Yeah. I do appreciate that this is an affluent area, and there's not so many ordinary families in that, put it to ordinary families who need affordable housing, but an off-site payment of affordable housing would have been acceptable, really. I know we can't probably put it there, but if there'd been 10 dwellings, we'd have affordable housing. So it's a question. I don't want to turn a question into comment at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Peter. So, Councillor Laura Maelstrom.
Thank you. Firstly, are these houses going to have individual gardens? It wasn't clear to me from the drawings.
Through Chair, yes, they do have individual gardens. So it's, I admit it's fairly difficult to see, but I don't know if you can see my cursor, but the plots are split effectively. There's bin storage on a few of the plots that helps denote where the separations are. So they've got fairly rectangular plots of private gardens. So they're all located to the rear of the dwelling houses. So as I say, they're more sort of thin but long sort of strips of land for private gardens, really. But to be fair, also the scale of it, sort of relative to the size of buildings as well, there'll still be, you know, appropriate sized gardens in that sense.
And my other question was about the brook. What is the boundary? I'm slightly concerned. Is there a fence along that eastern boundary, or a hedge, or anything? Or is it free access down into the brook? And also, there's a reference to part of the site being within flood zone 2 or 3. So is there any flood protection? I get that the houses are going to be raised, but the gardens could presumably still be waterlogged.
Through you, Chair. So in terms of the nature of well, effectively what's between where the proposed dwellings are and the brook, as far as I can remember, it's effectively a vegetated area, and in any case, in terms of fencing, it's something the Higher Authority have asked for regarding the pedestrian access that you can just about see on the site layout plan. They have asked for effectively a fencing scheme there to try and discourage access into that area, because obviously it's a brook for safety issues and things like that. With regard to flooding, yeah, so effectively none of the houses are within flood zone 2 or 3. So the houses themselves aren't particularly at risk of flooding. I can't recall exactly where the flood zone clips. If it does clip a garden area, in any case, it's because it's a garden area, it's not likely to be sort of, it's not considered habitable for the main purposes of applying flood policy. It's not something we would be particularly concerned about in that instance. But speaking to that, I know the flood risk assessment that's provided does carry some of the standard mitigation and resilience measures for, I believe it's for the plot closest to the brook.
Do you wish to ask anything else, Laura? Councillor Lees.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll agree with Councillor Burford. We do need a good quality brick on this one, but in today's climate, I don't think there's such a thing as a cheap brick now. But possibly a nice handmade brick would be nice. That's just an observation. But when we look at this plan, Edward, have we gone under the line that they need to look like barns, or I'm just my question is, with being in a rural location, I'd like to see some false chimneys on them because they're in a rural location, whether they're used or not, or whether you've gone for the barn look, which don't have chimneys.
Edward.
Through your chair, I believe the design approach, which I know the agent knows, he refers to it as this, but effectively the quasi-agricultural appearance. I believe that's just based on the approach of acknowledging that it's in a countryside location and also semi-detached from the rest of the dwellings as well. So that's the approach they've taken. We've considered to be acceptable in this. We think it's perfectly reasonable as an approach for the design of those dwellings in this area, predominantly because it provides relatively simple massing, and it's not fussy, as it were. So it's not going to look contrived or anything like that. So it fits for a rural area.
Yeah, but I was just looking because the first house into the estate, if you like, has got a chimney, and the others haven't. So it's just one of my whims. I just think they look better with chimneys. But
just to tack on, so I believe the philosophy or the design rationale behind that is to reflect a sort of farmstead approach, whereby you'd have one more prominent farmhouse design with chimneys and a slightly larger appearance as well, and then behind that having these more barn-esque dwellings with simpler massing and less architectural detailing to give the impression that it's a farmstead, or give a nod to that approach of design.
Stuart, any further? No. Councillor G.
Yeah, just quickly following up on Councillor Barefoot, because I agree with her on the bricks and materials. Is it possible for us to actually condition particular types of bricks? I know, is it some, Frydon Brickworks, did they make bricks? I'm not sure.
Fire.
And I know, because obviously when you go down to that area, there's nice properties and they do look nice, but I agree with Councillor Barefoot there, so I just wondered if that was a possibility.
Through your chair, so we can condition that they submit sort of further details and samples of the materials they're going to use. We can't condition them to or sort of prescribe a particular manufacturer's materials, but we can ask them to submit details to us, and then we can review them and decide whether or not they're acceptable. So it's not something in my recommendation, but if committee members are minded to do so, they can add a condition to the effect that the developer provide samples for our review.
Yeah, I'd like to add that condition if possible. Propose it.
Would you like Councillor G to move this on the basis of what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I would, yeah.
Does that find a seconder, please? Councillor Lees. So we've got before us now a motion that permission be granted on the basis of, can you just clarify again, please?
Basically on the basis of what's allowable that Edward's pointed out, to condition the types of bricks that are used in the development.
Yeah. So we've got a motion. Does anyone wish to speak? Councillor Hughes, David, and then Councillor Slack.
Very simply, just to amplify what everybody else has been saying about bricks. There are two. I've just been looking on Street View, and there are two properties in Cubley which are old, and one just up the lane from the development, which has old bricks that I would have thought would provide an example of the kind of bricks that would be suitable here, and one actually in the middle of Cubley which is similar. And what's interesting about both of those buildings is that they would they are consistent with the design, the overall approach to appearance that has been adopted by the developers. So they might also provide examples of the sorts of brickwork that would be suitable here.
Councillor G.
I don't necessarily want them to use old bricks, but I'd like them to use bricks, because bricks do have a lifetime.
I wasn't thinking old bricks.
You know, they don't need to be reclaimed bricks, but they're just bricks that have got the right appearance. That's what I'm really trying to get to. And I'm sure planning officers understand that.
Councillor G and then Councillor Slack. Yeah, Councillor G. Lees, sorry. Yeah.
You keep consulting me tonight,
I'm
Chair.
sorry.
Quite agree with Councillor Hughes. I mean, obviously, I've been in the building trade all my life. One particular brick that comes to mind, it's called Turca Cassandra. Very good brick. You wouldn't tell the difference between that and an old reclaimed brick, basically, which most of them are used nowadays, and it's down to, as you know, availability as well. So I think by putting that condition in that a sample of the brick is brought to the planning officer for him to approve is a good condition.
Thank you. So, Councillor Peter Slack and then Councillor John Boynton.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree. We've got to get the right bricks too. I know we've discussed it to get it. I don't know if there's stone in that area. Grit stone, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, what I want to comment on is what I've commented on earlier. Being that this site should add more houses on it, which would have brought affordable housing, it's a bit disappointing. It's the second time tonight we've not had affordable housing. We keep missing affordable housing over and over again, and it's not. People need affordable housing, and ordinary people need affordable housing, and we must not take our mind off that subject where we can create affordable housing. When you negotiate with the developers, it should be stressed that we need affordable housing, and to go to 9 dwellings and not 10 is obviously missing affordable housing. So I'm disappointed about that. I will support it, but I am disappointed about it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Peter. Just before I bring in Councillor Boynton, I do have not just sympathy, I do actually agree with you, Peter, because consistently, you know, for a number of years you've been saying this in any case, and consistently we're getting applications. No criticism of the applicant, you're a decent person and all of that, but the reality is, you know, there will be, I'm sure, some local, you know, young people in Cubley and in that area where if there'd have been just 2 in this situation, that would have been better than nothing. And there is, you know, at the end of the day, a great social imbalance between the haves and the have-nots, and good luck to the people that will be living here. But I just feel as a member of this council, and I'm sure for most of us, there is a responsibility and a desire to try and enhance and make sure these communities do provide, as you quite rightly say, Peter, you know, some decent low cost or social housing. It doesn't have to be, you know, bog standard stuff. We want it to be, you know, to the standard where we want our own children to be able to live, and we're just not achieving that, are we?
Can I just say that even if you don't want the houses there, they could have been off-site payment. We could build houses somewhere else, you know, if it wasn't desirable to be in that area. You know, we get that impression, but there is people in that area who will be wanting reasonable social housing and affordable housing. So,
I will reluctantly support the application,
yeah.
Because part of me feels in an ideal world this ought to have been able to have offered, you know, the opportunity for a couple of local families to stay in the area.
Thank you, Chair.
John Boynton.
Chair, I just want to try and tighten up on the condition that we put on, or thinking of putting on. We're asking the planning officers to approve the brick because we want a better brick, but we're not being specific about what is a better brick. So at the moment, this condition is a little bit vague, other than to say approved by the planning officers. I'm not sure how we do that, but it's just an observation.
Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, that's why I brought up the examples in the village, because I thought that would give the planners a pointer to the sort of brick that we were thinking. So, and yeah.
Could we perhaps take on board fully what Councillor Lees was saying, because it seems to me you know what you're talking about in terms of bricks, Stuart, and this is something that perhaps...
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's pretty... there's that many bricks out there, like you say, but it's got to be the right brick, and I'm sure that the planning officers will make that decision and get it right, because we're not looking at a cheap London brick, we're looking at possibly an handmade brick, or, you know, maybe a machine-made brick, but a quality brick, a quality clay brick, you know, proper clay brick that's burnt correctly, and, you know, like a multi-mix or something like that you could get from, like I stated, like if I go back to the Turkey Cassandra mix, there's like about 5 or 6 different bricks in that range, but they are a good quality brick. And, you know, and like we had this discussion yesterday, you get a good quality brick, but then you get faced with the salts coming out of them. So, you know, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't, if you like, but a good quality brick, I'm sure that the planning officers are quite capable of looking at it and deciding.
I think the agent is listening intently to this desire and has no reason not to perhaps ensure that what the spirit of the meeting is saying, you know, doesn't happen. Councillor Burford.
Yeah, I just feel I do need to come back on this, because, you know, while we're talking about the quality of the brick, at the same time I'm very conscious that, you know, there are people who need affordable housing, either to buy or to rent, and I absolutely go along with you, Peter, about what you're saying, and I think we all think the same about we want to see housing provision for everybody. At the same time, my thing, if you like, about brick is very heartfelt, because I have seen, and I could take you, I won't name where they are, but they are new houses in Matlock that slip through the net, and they are the most, well, I think, the most dreadful red brick you could ever imagine. They've got salt coming out of them. As Stuart says, I don't know what you can do about that, but I do not want to see that anywhere ever again in red brick. So whether they're the cheap ones, I don't know. I assume they must be cheaper than, is it not? So, right, I'm very happy that our officers know what we are saying, and that they will not let something that looks cheap and nasty with salt coming out of it end up in these houses, or indeed any houses that we give approval to. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. I've got to confess, I'm losing the plot tonight. Has this been moved and seconded? Who moved it, please? Councillor G. Sorry, Gareth. And the seconder was Councillor Lee. Thank you very much. I think we've had a good discussion, debate, if you like. So can we just put this now to the vote, please? All those in favour that we grant consent, please show. And that is unanimous, thank you. So we move now to the Planning Appeal Progress Report. Does any member wish to raise anything? Councillor Hughes?
Thank you. Can I raise the first one on the list, which I know of, having talked to the owner of the site and visited on several occasions. This appeal concerns a shed, painted green, in a field, hardly visible from the road, on a lane which has about 8 vehicles a day travelling along it. The owner of the field says that he crops hay off this field every year. He has had sheep on it. He hasn't got, I don't think there are sheep there now, but he has got sheep on it. Yet he is being told he has to. He needs. There is a change of use And there is a change of use because he is a bird watcher, and he's put up this shed as a hide to enable him to take photographs of birds. And online you can see some marvellous photographs of wild animals, including many, many birds that he has taken on his property. Now, it's a disappointment here because the appeal went in April 2025, if I recall correctly, and it's now June 2026, yet there's no decision has been made, and he is in limbo. He's fortunate able to be, while the appeal goes on, to continue to use his shed. His shed doesn't have any foundations, it's just on 4 slabs of, paving slabs, nothing significant. The shed itself is small. The reason it's there is because he's got a table and 2 folding chairs, and he can have a flask of coffee on the table while he's bird watching. Is this a proper use of the planning system, or is this what is this? I fail to see the point in this. It's tied up our planners, it's tied up the planning inspectorate, and it's created stress for the person who owns the shed. What are we trying to do here? Can't we accept that he's growing hay, and that's proper agricultural use, and he's taken seedlings, he's got seedlings growing in his shed, and that's horticultural. If he planted some tomatoes outside, would that make it acceptable? If he planted raspberry canes in a polytunnel, would that be acceptable? Would that make it and he tended the polytunnel, and by the way, he then used the shed as well to take photographs. It seems completely nonsensical, a waste of time, a waste of public money, and a stress to the individual concerned. I'm really upset that he has been pursued with an enforcement notice, which he has then had to take to appeal. He had to employ an agent or a planning consultant to help him make the appeal. It's a real disgrace.
David, when did you say this all kicked off?
April. Well, it kicked off sometime before April 2025, and it was probably a confusion on his part about how to put in a planning application, as far as I can understand it, or how to respond to an enforcement requirement, something along those lines.
Yeah, thank you, David. Chris, is there anything you're able to?
I mean, I don't know the full details of this case, but and it wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment. This is a live planning appeal, so we await the decision of the planning inspectorate. Ultimately, the outcome will be in their hands, and I can't really. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment on the merits of the case on a live planning appeal.
But really, from what you're saying, David, this is really a line of action that we didn't ought to be repeating.
Absolutely, yeah.
Councillor Slack.
This has just come in tonight, by the way. It's a planning appeal made by Mr. Arden for property he wants to develop in Darley Lets at Greenhill, Wordsworth. Two little tiny cottages. At the time, if we all recall, that Derbyshire County Council was against this on highways grounds because Greenhills, if you know Greenhill, it's like that. It's tight and it's narrow, and two cars have a job to pass. And to have holiday lets where people are constantly coming and going and unloading luggage, it's desperately blocking the road, and County Council went against this, and we agreed with that. We went along with that. Now the appeal has gone against it, because I don't know why they have gone against it, but they have gone against it. Maybe because the second homes issue is, I don't know if that's an issue, but Wordsworth, as you know, has got a neighbourhood plan where second homes, if they new built second homes, it's got to be to local residents. There can't be second homes in Wordsworth through neighbourhood plan. Also in neighbourhood plan, change of use is same. If it's change of use, it's got to be to a local person, not to an outsider for holiday lets, which protects local people and finds answers for local people. That's what we're about, isn't it? Looking after local people. And unfortunately, this appeal's gone against us, so it's disappointing, but probably Wordsworth Town Council will reassess this and look at it again, and but this was based on the County Council refusing to accept this, and we all agree with that, because it was too dangerous. But
Okay, we
they've gone
note
against
that
us.
then, Peter,
But
thank you.
Chair.
Is there any further comments on this? If not, would someone kindly move, please, that the Planning Appeals Progress Report be noted tonight? So it's been moved by Councillor Dobbs, seconded by Councillor Hughes. All those in favour? And that is unanimous, thank you. And then finally, we move to pages 99 to 112, planning performance, and I'd like to bring in at this point briefly Chris to address the committee, please.
Thank you, Chair. The Planning Performance Quarterly Report covers the period from 1st April 2023 to 31st March 2026. I won't go through it in detail because it's there's quite a lot of detail in it, but just focusing on the last financial year, 9 out of 11 major planning applications were determined within the statutory 13 time period, or an alternative agreed period, which equates to 82% of applications determined in time. The equivalent figure for non-major applications being determined in time was 75% for the last financial year. In relation to the Council's planning appeals performance, a key issue to bring to the committee's attention is the risk of designation by central government. This is set out in paragraphs 2.22 to 2.24 of the report. Committee members will recall that a report was presented in November last year regarding the risk of designation in relation to major planning application appeals performance, and an update was provided in February of this year. I'm pleased to say the Council did not meet the relevant 10% threshold for designation in relation to decisions issued during the 24-month period, April 2023 to March 2025. And the current position is that for the period April 2024 to March 2026, the percentage of major applications determined, refused, appealed and subsequently overturned on appeal is 8.82%, which is still below the 10% threshold, and this figure is unlikely to change due to planning inspectorate deadlines for submitting appeals. There is pretty much hard and fast deadlines for submitting appeals, but they have been known to exercise discretion in the past, so that there's some caution around that figure of 8.82%, but it's very unlikely to change. The next review period is April 2025 to March 27. That period is currently underway, and it's too early to provide any meaningful data in relation to that period.
Thank you for those comments, Chris. Now, members, does anyone wish to make comment about the planning performance report? Councillor Maelstrom.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that the percentages haven't really changed year on year, you know, roughly speaking, in terms of the percentage that's delegated and the percentage that's rejected against officer approval, etc. But what is changing is the number of applications is dropping quite significantly. I wondered if Chris knew why that is.
Point, Chris. Any?
I don't actually. That actually isn't a trend that I've picked up on. I've only obviously been in post around 12 months, and I've not noticed any significant change over that period. But it is an interesting one. I'm afraid I'm not sure of what the reasons for it might be. You obviously, in relation to economic circumstances, the number of planning applications does rise and fall naturally. I don't know if it's related to that or some other factor. I would only be speculating, I'm afraid, at this stage.
Thank you, Laura. Any other comments? If not, would someone be prepared to move Councillor Dobbs and second acceptance, Councillor Slack? So, all those in favour, please show. And again, that appears to be unanimous. Members, Councillor Dobbs.
Very quickly, Chair, I don't want to detain people, but you may recall that I think 2 planning meetings ago, we resolved to ask Chris to write to the LLFA to clarify some points following the Throstle Nest appeal result, and the questions I think Chris has now circulated, and if I may quickly summarise what the LLFA said when they were reminded to reply, and thank you, Chris, for reminding them to reply. But essentially, I got four bullet points, not all of which are particularly pleasing. But my first one is that the existing problems are regarded as the responsibility of the various riparian owners. So if there's an existing flooding problem, then we cannot expect a new development to solve an existing problem, because the new development is only required to maintain the status quo, which would clearly not solve an existing problem, which is, you know, particularly pertinent to Brailsford. My next bullet point was that the LFA will not undertake schemes to mitigate flood risk in order to accommodate new development, which is a fairly sobering thought. And that the last one is that any improvements to address existing problems will probably dependent on external, i.e. government funding. So it was quite a sobering message, and I'm sure it is you know, one that we've got to take on board. We cannot expect existing problems to be addressed in the context of new developments, which is kind of bad news.
Thank you very much, Peter, for bringing that to our attention. It's just madness, isn't it? Yeah. So it's been moved and seconded. It's been agreed we note these comments in this report, and thank you all members, and this concludes then the meeting. Thank you.